Oh my gosh, this chair, like the way it be sliding by. Okay, so I'm excited to get into this book review because this is the first mystery novel I've read in a long time. Literally, I think the last time I read a mystery book novel was a Nancy Drew book I read when I was like 12. I finished it in a couple hours. It was short, but it was really, really good. This one, guys. So this is 3 Act Tragedy by Agatha Christie. All her books are old. You know, she was around a long time ago. I mean, 20th century, but it was a while back. And I think it's so cool that she is only outsold by Shakespeare and the Bible. Like the freaking Bible, like that's crazy. My microphone is at home. I am out of state, so this is my mic for today. I have a lot of thoughts about this book. A lot happened, and I'm gonna be doing a spoiler review as well in here, but I'm gonna mark when I start giving spoilers and then when the big reveal happens. So if you want to hear some of the spoilers, or you don't want to hear like the big reveal, skip around a little bit, but we're gonna get into my initial thoughts first. Okay, so first of all, I literally was at the library and I was like, let me just look around, see what's here, and I stumbled upon a whole section full of Agatha Christie novels, and my library, I believe the one closest to me, doesn't have all those. I was like, what's all this? So I just picked up 2 that looked interesting. The other one I didn't get to read because overdue, but 3 Act Tragedy and the 7 Dials Mystery are the ones I picked up, and I read 3 Act Tragedy. So, you know, I was excited. I was like, I almost got, saying it properly is like, it was a Hercule Poirot novel, mystery, and I was like, you know, I like him. He was the detective in the movies Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, and then the last one about Halloween, I forget what it was called. But those 3, I watched all the movies. The last one, in my opinion, was the most interesting. So I was like, okay, this is by Agatha Christie. You know, the books are usually better than the movies, so the books must be great. So we got my hands on this book. And I was like, of course, what better thing to start with when I start reading TBRs, all that ish, than one of these books. So first book I finished on my TBR for February. Oh my gosh, so much to talk about. Let's get into it. There's a lot packed into this little book, okay? It's only about 249 pages, I think. So not the size of a lot of novels. Most novels are closer to 400 pages. So, you know, decently sized, but not too long. There was a lot of character building. It was not the way I thought it was gonna go. A lot of mystery novels, mystery stories, just like the way TV shows go, movies, whatever. Mystery stories, they focus on the detective. Like you get to know a lot about the detective. You start to develop relationships and like understandings of the side characters, but it's about the detective. You're seeing into their mind, kind of, so on and so forth. And you feel like you're just lucky to be there along for the ride. But this one was done very differently from that. We got a lot of character building about characters that were not him. We saw most of Mr. Poirot towards the end, like the second half of the book, like further than halfway. And I literally had to scroll through to see when we see him again, because I was like, what's going on here? I came for this man. Where is he at? And at first I was like, I don't know if I like that, but I'm gonna just be here, you know, I'm gonna read all the words. I read every single word. I'm gonna just be here for the ride. And was it a ride? It was very much worth being patient with and trusting the process. I think that was like one of the biggest things with this book. I just had to relax. It was something new to me. There was a lot of suspense, but it didn't feel like she was trying hard to make it suspenseful. Like she wasn't telling us how to feel. It was just like, say they go and talk to someone and it's like nighttime and they're alone. She's like, oh my God, what could happen? Is this the murder? Da, 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 da. And they're putting themselves in these dangerous situations. And then she just leaves it there and they have their conversation. Like she's not telling you, oh, they felt like this, da, 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 necessarily. It's very subtle ways. Like she's telling us through the setting or what the characters are saying, how they're standing, sitting, whatever. My biggest thing with mystery stuff, detective stuff, which is one reason I love it so much, is like you get to guess along with them. Like, oh my God, I think it's this person because this, that. And usually I have a pretty good idea. And in this, my first instinct was correct, but I second guessed myself a lot because of the information we were getting. I was like, oh, what if I was like, maybe, but I was like, what could be this person? And I thought that was so good because I could tell that that was intentional. I wasn't supposed to know. Literally at the end, I had actual tears in my eyes as I was finishing it. I had to finish it before I went to bed. I went to bed late because I finished it at like 11:30, which isn't too late. Oh my gosh, like it wasn't even just the fact that it was this person that did it. It was the way that it was explained that got me. So, oh my gosh. All right, so this is the official spoiler breakdown. So I'm gonna talk about all the stuff that happened that mattered in my opinion. And then at the end of this, I'll tell you who did it. And then I'll give you my rating because we start with this man, Charles Cartwright. And for me, the fact that we opened the book not starting with Hercule Poirot, I was like, I'm sorry, who was this guy? He's like a playwright, actor, handsome man, he's rich. He's gonna be throwing a party tonight. We see him with his friends, Satterthwaite. I don't know how to say his name because it's spelled like, I'll put the spelling here, like Satterthwaite. I don't know. I say Satterthwaite in my head. And Dr. Bartholomew Strange, so Dr. Strange, funny. And they're just talking about the party, these guests, blah, 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 blah. And then his maid or assistant comes in and she's like, oh, well, this person isn't coming, so I should dine with you guys because people are superstitious about the number 13. So if I dine with you, it'd be 14. And I was like, why is she trying to dine with us? Suspicious. So I kept her in my head. I was like, keep track of that woman. Described her like she was tall. They called her ugly. I doubt she was ugly, but plain ugly woman, thin. Like, okay. Like they really tried to make her seem like the villain. So I was like, it's a little too obvious, so I'll keep her in my head because, she really seems like, it's her idea to come and attend this dinner, even though she's got help. But I was like, okay, interesting. I'm just thinking this whole time, I'm like, why does this stuff matter? And then they mentioned that Mr. Poirot was gonna be one of the guests, and I was like, oh, okay, say less. Now I'm interested. I'm excited to see him. I was a little bored, but I was excited to see this man, see what happens. So then we get into the dinner party, and Poirot was at the dinner party when one of the guests dies. He takes a sip of his drink, dies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so he was there. It's a murder. We're gonna find out who it is. This one murder. They ask him if he thinks it's a murder. Charles Cartwright thinks it was. And Satterwhite and Poirot was like, oh no, they tested the glass, whatever, not a murder. I was like, what do you mean it's not a murder? This is literally a murder mystery book. And there was a wine glass. He had a cocktail. There's a wine glass on the cover. Bill, I know someone killed this man. And I was like, okay. I don't know what is going on. I don't even know why I'm reading anymore, but there are more pages. Let's continue on. Let's see, okay? And then we have this girl, Egg. I'm guessing in the book she's like around my age, maybe younger. I think she's like early 20s, maybe closer to mid 20s, but she's young. She's like pretty or attractive, whatever. Not super, super pretty, but attractive is like what they said, the way they described her. She has a thing for Mr. Charles. He's what, like 30 years older than her? But then it seems like she better with this guy, Oliver, who's her age. She grew up with him. And I'm just wondering, why does this ish matter? Like, where's Poirot? Can I find out about this mystery? And then Charles leaves because he's like, oh, I think she's in love with Oliver. Manders is his name. I'm leaving. And Egg is heartbroken, blah, blah, blah. Her mom is like, she doesn't like Oliver, all this stuff. Months later, Charles Cartwright gets a letter from Egg. Oh, her name is Egg Linden Gore, I believe. Egg is her nickname because as a kid, she used to just like, she was clumsy, something like that. He gets a letter from her and she's like, oh my gosh, your friend Bartholomew Strange has been murdered. And he and Sada were like, okay, well, we should go there. She's like, I think someone killed him. Well, he died the same way. Not confirmed to be murder, but it's pretty suspicious. I think someone killed him. Come down here, like, okay, we're gonna go investigate. On their way down there, they're gonna go talk to some police officer or something. Saturday runs into Poirot again. And I'm like, okay. Now he's gonna get involved, invite him to investigate. They just have a little chit chat about stuff. And then nothing. I was like, I don't understand why you're playing with us. I don't understand why you're playing with us. We're supposed to watch these amateurs investigate and enjoy it. So I'm just like, so Saturday and Cartwright, they go investigate before they meet up with Egg. They go to this man's house, talk to the maids. They talk to the police first, and they go to his house, talk to the maids, and find out that there's this guy Ellis. And this guy Ellis was a butler. He just got there, left right after this man was killed, disappeared, supposedly. They find out about this Miss Rushbridger, I just remember her name, at Sanatorium, which is like a hospital that Dr. Strange was at. Something about her name, like he had a phone call before he died related to her. He got like whatever. Okay, anyway, they go to investigate that, and then Charles is like, oh, I thought of something. They go back to the house, to the butler's room. Charles Cartwright puts on this whole show, acting out what he thought Ellis did for like a good 20-30 minutes, whatever. Maybe it wasn't like an hour. Then he finds some letters behind the fireplace. It's Ellis writing to the murderer, I know you did it, I need just like payment or something, and he wrote like a bunch of different drafts, and then the last one was unfinished because he heard someone coming up the stairs, hid them behind the fireplace. They find them, oh, interesting, where's this man Ellis? So I'm thinking this man Ellis was murdered, okay? That's what I'm thinking, because he knows something, he was killed. And there's some secret passage in the house that Strange knew about, and people think Ellis knew about it. Okay, so literally for chapters, it's the Three Musketeers, Satterwhite, Charles Cartwright, and Egg investigating this murder, and they do a decent job. I thought it was interesting how she shows us these people that are not investigators go around asking questions. I think like they got a good chunk of information. They know they're curious about this murder, but they're seeing them as friends. And also like it was nicotine that did it. And nicotine is like a clear liquid, pure nicotine. So that's how they were killed. And it's not confirmed that the one guy, I forget his name, the first guy that got killed, he was an older man. He was a vicar. A vicar is like a priest in like England, I think, by having his body exhumated, which means that it was buried, but they dug it up and did an autopsy. So confirm that he was killed, and that matters obviously because now we have two murders. So So Egg interviews the other, I forget their name, but the wife was cheating on the husband, and so the thing about the guy she was sleeping with was employed by Strange and he sent him away. So she said, oh, that's motive. Egg was thinking maybe, cause like that was taking her money away because guy had money. And then the husband was being treated by Strange and he didn't like him. She found out while they were having drinks at some bar. So also possible motive, but it wasn't like sticking enough. And I was like, the funny thing was, I would say, whenever they got like information from people, even though it seemed like it could lead somewhere for me, they'd be like, oh, it's not enough motive. And I was like, says who? This is the problem with having you amateurs do it. You don't know what you're doing. Eventually, they finally bring in Poirot. He comes in and he's like, I heard you guys are investigating. And he's like, I don't have to take a leading role. And it's because he knows that there's something going on with Egg and Charles Cartwright. And he's like, obviously she's looking up at him like, wow, this guy is amazing. Whatever, let them have their moment. But Egg almost said, oh no. Like she's hesitant to let him join. I was like, Miss Ma'am, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You guys are not gonna find this murder without this man's help. Let's be so for real. Let the professionals handle it. So he joins in, and this is when it gets interesting. So at first I was like, he joined in, but he's letting them do investigations still. And I was like, I don't really like that. But we'll see where it goes. Satterwhite is suspicious of Oliver Manders because on the night that Dr. Strange was killed, Oliver Manders came as an unexpected guest because he had a strange accident on a straight road. Papa was like, oh, you go investigate him, go talk to him and tell him that you think that that was a fake accident, see what happens. It was an interesting conversation. He finds out that according to Oliver Manders, Dr. Strange is one that told him to crash into the wall. So it was Dr. Strange's wall. And we're like, what the heck? We never found out why, because the man is dead. And also he said that he wrote him a letter to say it, but then Oliver ripped up the letter. I was like, why'd you rip up the letter? So that whole thing was a little bit of a hole, but I believe him personally. I was like, he doesn't seem to have any reason to kill these people, so I believe him. The reason why he was suspicious is because he grew up with the vicar, and apparently they had like a couple of heated arguments, and Oliver was like, he was an illegitimate child, son of an affair. So yeah, that was like the only motive, but I was like, it's not strong enough, and what reason does he have to kill Dr. Strange? So for me, it wasn't good enough. And then Egg and Charles do a lot of investigations together. So she also grew up with the vicar, and she grew up with Oliver. All those people, they grew up together. She goes back to investigate, as well as the assistant, the woman that's tall, that works for Charles. Okay, yeah, so they go to investigate, and while they're there, Charles confesses his feelings for Egg, that he loves her, and then she says she loves him too. He's like, oh wow, I'm so happy. And then she's like, okay, well, what about this murder? And he's like, who cares about this murder business? I'm so happy, I'm so happy. And I'm thinking, this is your pride and joy right now. You are so invested in who killed these people, and all of a sudden you don't care because you have love. That was suspicious to me because I thought it was crazy. I didn't mention this before. At the party, the person that was mixing the drinks was Sir Charles Cartwright. So I was like, this man, Charles Cartwright, is the one that was mixing the drinks, and someone died of nicotine poisoning. That's sus. And now you're saying you don't care about because you have your love? Weird. But I was like, okay, but what do those two things have to do with each other? Okay. So later, Charles Cartwright goes and interviews this one woman, and she's a playwright as well. The conversation was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever read in a book in my life. You just need to pick it up because I'm not going to do it justice here. But basically, they're talking about stuff, and she obviously knows something, but she's keeping things to her chest. She likes to have information. So she says, oh, I noticed the butler, I noticed everybody. I did a little investigating myself, but I noticed the butler had a birthmark on his right hand. And I noticed that when he was serving me, it was shaped like something. And he's like, oh, okay, interesting. I was thinking, like, how can we have an investigation someone doesn't have like a defining mark? And she was talking about hands, and I was like, why do we care about these hands? So then as Charles was leaving, he was like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna, make sure you tell the police about this information, because she didn't tell him because she'd forgotten about the mark. And then he's like, which hand did you say was it on again? She's like, oh, the left. He's like, the left? Oh, he said the right. She's like, oh, did I? Sorry, could you like hand me a tray pretending to be Ellis, the butler, and then I'll be able to tell you which one. So he hands her a tray. He's like, oh my, here's your vegetable or whatever the hell it was. She's like, oh, thank you. Okay, it was definitely the right. And then as he's turning and leaving, he turns back around and she's staring at the fireplace, making this face like she knows something, and this like devious, knowing. And I was like, ooh, and bro, give me chills. And I was like, what the heck? Very interesting. Right before that, or right after, no, after this, Poirot, because they were talking about how she knows something, she's not saying what she knows or whatever. Oh, people might know something. So he's like, okay, we're gonna have a sherry party. I'm gonna host a sherry party. Get all these people together. Like, you guys don't worry about it. Like, this is not a murder. Let's have a good time. So then they're drinking, laughing, whatever. And then Charles Cartwright, I'm like, oh my God. So there's no way it's him. Okay. So even though I was a little suspicious of him, he was one of the people on my list. It's not him because he just died. And Edgar's like, oh my God, Charles. And the lady Angela is like, oh my God, shocked. She just started laughing. And then he stands up. he's fine. They were pretending. And I had a feeling they might do that, but I was like, nah, there's no way he's dead. No way he's dead. He was not dead. So then he says, okay, we had him pretend. And Egg was so mad. How could you do that? You're horrible. Okay, relax. He's alive. I think that's kind of mean to me. Anyway, he's like, we did all this because we're trying to see the reactions of people because we need to see, you might know something. And no one said anything, but he was like, okay, well, I have some of the information I needed, but if you know anything, please, please, please say something. But from what we know, no one said anything. So then they're talking about it and they're like, oh, that was maybe kind of like, you know, pointless. He's like, oh, well, we got some information. So then they get a telegram. Poirot receives a telegram at he's staying at a hotel from Mrs. de Rushbridger. And the reason why they couldn't see her earlier, I don't know if I mentioned that, they went to the sanatorium, they couldn't see her is because she was like, she had like a nervous breakdown or something. That's what Dr. Strange deals with nerves. So she had a nervous breakdown. It's funny how they thought those two things related, but anyway. But now she's okay. She sent a telegram, come see me, I have information. Like, oh, we can talk about, you know, what Strange knew and the reason why he was all excited, da, 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 da. In the morning, Poirot and Saturday will go to the sanatorium, and then Egg and Charles Cartwright will go back to that town that the vicar is from and Egg is from, like they planned. But then Satterwhite's like, oh no, I should go with you guys. I started, like, that was kind of like my whole line of investigation. But then Egg is like, no, we have to go see this woman. Mrs. Taylor, I think it was the lady that works for him. Her mom, because she knows you because you're her daughter's employer. And I thought it was interesting how he was insisting on going, Charles Cartwright, but I was like, okay, whatever. So, okay, you're right, let's go. So they go there. Poirot and Satterwhite go to see Mrs. Rushbridger. So when they're there, the mom is telling, she doesn't really give us a ton of information, but I remember that was like super, super important. But they talk to the mom and then they leave. And he drops Egg off at home and then he's like, oh, I'm gonna go check on someone, I think is what he said. He was gonna go do something. I think he was gonna check on Angela. And then they're like, oh, she left suddenly. Didn't even take a bag, weird. He's like, oh, okay, strange. Poirot and Satterwhite went to the sanatorium and Mrs. de Rushbridger is dead. She was killed. She'd eaten chocolates and they had nicotine in them. So the same murderer killed her. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here? So then they find out who delivered the telegram, this kid. You can already see the tears, bro, it was intense. Who delivered the telegram, it was this kid. He got the telegram from this man dressed in tattered clothes. And so like, okay, who's this man? So I'm thinking, okay, what is going on? Like, everything is just up in the air, I'm so confused. So then Poirot was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the house. He goes to see, I think he was gonna go see Charles Cartwright. Then he runs into Mrs. Taylor, the woman, the tall woman, the thin woman. And at first he seems like he's gonna go into the house, but then she's like, oh, I'm gonna go see my mother. But he's like, let me follow her. So he follows her a taxi, gets on the same train as her, and she ends up going to the property that Charles has in this other town, I forget what it's called. She makes sure no one's following her, so obviously it's super suspicious. And it's like dark, so I'm nervous. I'm like, oh my God, what if he gets killed? Or if Poirot gets knocked out. I'm like, I'm sure he doesn't get killed because, you know, there's so many books. Maybe this is the last one, I don't know what's going on. There's so much going on. I'm talking so fast. So she goes up some ladder to this like area and then she's about to break something and he stops her. I'm like, oh. So I'm like, okay, she's the murderer. Because when Egg was with her when they found out, or she was with Egg when they found out that that first guy was murdered. She's like, oh my God, what do? And Egg was like, strange, what do you mean, what do you do? What do you have to do with this? And now it looks like she's a murderer, right? Okay, so then we don't get any information after that in that chapter. So now next chapter. So this is when we find out everything. So listen, if you're okay with all those spoilers, and you're like, okay, I can still read the book and like be like in it, cool. But if you don't want to know who did it, this is when you go skip forward to my full rating, okay? But if you want to know who did it, and you want me to tell you in the way that I be talking, because the way my fast talking kind of all over the place-ish, stick around, okay? So Poirot sits his little three musketeers down and he's like, I'm telling you who did it, okay? We're gonna talk about it real quick. And he's like, all right, so, and this is gonna be really short, and again, you need to read it, because those pages of just him talking, it was so well done. Agatha Christie needs like several rounds of applause, like, because it was just so good. Oh my God, like I can't even, it's hard for me to just like, so intentional, so immersive. Like I was in it, I was like, oh my God, I'm telling you, I read every single word of this book, okay? Sits him down and he's like, okay, so you thought that in order to understand the second murder, we had to understand the first, because why would someone kill this old man? But we couldn't find out, you know, what strong motive there was. All the links that we had, they didn't make any sense. But what we didn't understand was that it was really the second murder that mattered. And the reason why this person was murdered had to do with love. Okay, remember I mentioned love. Why would someone want to kill Dr. Strange? There are more reasons to kill him. So he's like, let me just look back at this one. So basically, here's what happened. So at one point, Dr. Strange was like, oh, Ellis, like, you gave him these like shining compliments about like his work. You're a really interesting fellow, blah, 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 like whatever kind of butler. Everyone thought it was weird. Like, he doesn't talk like that about his help. And when Satterway mentioned that, Charles Cartwright decided to focus on Mrs. Zeresh-Bridger, okay? But the reason why it mattered is because Poirot found out that Ellis was Charles Cartwright. Charles Cartwright was Ellis. And the reason why the conversation was so interesting is because, so the reason why she asked him to hand her the tray was not because she mixed up the birthmarks, it was because of the hands. She kept mentioning the hands. She recognized his hands and she's like, oh, he is Ellis. So when he came back to her house, he was coming to kill this woman. And she had called Poirot, gave him that information. We didn't see that conversation, and tell him, oh, this is what I know about Cartwright. And he's like, okay, I need you to leave because I think he's gonna come and try to kill you. And that's exactly what he did. So, seriously. And then when it comes to Mrs. Zeresh-Bridger that was killed, the reason she was killed was because she didn't know anything, and to make it seem like she did know something. Very interesting, it's explained better in the book, but I was just like, oh. The person that was dressed in tattered clothes was Sir Charles Cartwright. He's the one that gave the kid all that stuff. She never sent a telegram. It was a lie. That was Cartwright. The reason why he killed Dr. Strange is because they knew each other for a long time, and Dr. Strange was the only person that knew, because everyone kept saying, oh, Charles Cartwright, bachelor, bachelor, bachelor. Dr. Strange is the only one that knew that Charles Cartwright was married, and the only reason why he couldn't get a divorce was because his wife was in an insane asylum. I guess back then you couldn't get divorces when people were in insane asylums, which is like, but if nobody knew about his wife, as no one else did know, then he could marry Egg and be happy with her. So he killed him so that no one would find out about his wife. And when he and Egg were investigating stuff and then they confessed for each other, he told her what his real last name was. It was Mugg. And then Egg told Poirot during like a cute conversation, she's like, oh yeah, we're happy together, whatever. And then Poirot was able to find out this man's wife's name by knowing his real name, not his stage name. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. So, I'm sure like you're wondering maybe, why was the first man killed? Like, this has nothing to do with him. The reason the first man was killed was just because, like, there was no reason other than Charles wanted to test the nicotine to make sure it was deadly. He just put it in a cup. Anyone could have taken that, anyone could have drunk it. And he just knew that his friend, Strange, wouldn't drink it because he doesn't drink cocktails. So he was ready to kill whoever. That man is just wild. He's just mad, bro. He's just mad. Like, he was ready to kill anybody to get this woman that he loves. And I was reading it, I was like, bro, I had a feeling, because when you think about it, it made sense that it was him. We just didn't know how to put together the clues. So now we get into my rating. And like, again, read this book because it's just gonna explain everything better than I did. But the rating, okay? This is a book that you earn. You earn the right to enjoy this book by putting in the work that it takes to actually read it and be there with the characters through the boring and the interesting. Like, I feel like a lot of times people just pick up books or watch movies to be entertained the whole time. But like, you need to be there for the ride to experience all like the highs and the lows and the just neutrals, like nothing's really happening, you know? Be in the story. I did not skip. I have a tendency to skip sometimes when I'm getting bored. I was like, no, I don't know what I might miss. That's the thing with mystery that I think is like really great and beautiful. If you skip, you can miss vital information and you had no idea you missed it because you skipped. But I could not skip, and I'm glad I couldn't skip. So I think that it was so well done because like the way that it went, it wasn't like you can guess along as much as you want, but it doesn't matter how much you guess, you will never be able to put the information together because you don't know how to get there. Like, we had almost all the information, we just didn't know how to get there. And maybe we didn't want to believe it. And for me, one thing that was hard for me is like, it was hard for me to believe that Charles did it because he was with Egg, and I was like, well, she's happy now, right? They're in love. No, that man is insane, that man is wild.
He's not mentally healthy.
Something is wrong with him. They're not happy, it is a facade. It's just so cool because like, you are an amateur investigator in my eyes, like the way I read it. We're here with the Three Musketeers, we're one of the Three Musketeers, and Poirot is the only one that can show us how it's done. So my man sits us down at the end in that last chapter and just tells us exactly how it went. And it's just also so crazy to me how like, this man could have killed his friend Satterway. He could kill anybody. Definitely worth the read. I also like how it's not like super exposition heavy. Like, he doesn't spend all this time describing like the house and the carpet, the steps, like their steps creaked all the time. Like, she's focusing on the characters, but she's also giving us some exposition, but it's not like we need all that. Like, she's really not afraid to get into the dialogue, which I love, because I love to see the characters interact with each other. Highly, highly, highly recommend. I'm so excited to read her other books, and I give this one a very strong 9 out of 10. The reason why it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 for me is because I feel like we spent a little too much time with the side characters, then I also see why it was done. I just wasn't a huge fan of that, but that's really the only reason for me. Yeah, it was really, really good. And I like her style of like exposing everything in the end. Just highly recommend that ish. 9 out of 10. So yeah, that is my review for this book. Oh my gosh. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of talking, a lot to explain. It's gonna be interesting to edit this one. If you did enjoy this and you want to check out my other stuff, you don't want to miss another upload because I'll be talking a lot about books and movies and life and such on this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below and comment. If you've read this book before, let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what your rating was. If you haven't, let me know what you look forward to reading. Let me know if you have any recommendations for other mystery novels or just novels in general. I'd love to get into it, especially romance. I love reading romance. Follow me on Wattpad and stuff if you want to read my writing, my jingles. I have my other socials linked down below. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you don't miss the next upload. I will see you in the next video. Sending you lots of love. Mwah. I'll see you in the next video talking about books and life.